Launched in 1964. Bewitched was once an icon of American television, making its mark with humorous magic, lovable characters, and a timeless humanitarian message. Yet behind the laughter and the sparkling appeal were real-life stories filled with tears where the actors struggled with illness, loneliness, and silent tragedies. The tragedy behind the glamour will take you to explore the true world after the magic of Bewitched. Elizabeth Montgomery as Samantha Stevens, The Magic and the Loneliness. Elizabeth Victoria Montgomery was born on April 15, 1933, in Los Angeles. As the daughter of the renowned actor Robert Montgomery, Elizabeth grew up in the dazzling yet demanding world of cinema. In 1964, Elizabeth stepped into the role of Samantha Stevens in Bewitched at the age of just 31. With just a mischievous twitch of her nose, she brightened the world of American television. Samantha quickly became an icon of the 1960s, a strong, self-reliant woman who was still fully feminine. However, behind the glamour was a completely different Elizabeth Montgomery, tired, lonely, and deeply wounded. She went through 3 failed marriages, always having to live on the fragile boundary between art and everyday life. After Bewitched ended, Elizabeth sought to escape the shadow of Samantha to prove herself as a more versatile actress, but the public forever remembered her as the cute witch of American television. In her final years, she silently battled colon cancer. Just weeks after being diagnosed, Elizabeth Montgomery passed away on May 18, 1995, at the age of 62. She was interred at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery in Los Angeles, a resting place for many Hollywood legends. At the time of her death, Elizabeth's assets were estimated at around $20 million, a large figure, yet one that could not measure the true value she left to the television industry. To the audience, Montgomery was more than just a star. She was an emblem of grace, pride, and kindness. Though the light of her life faded early, the magic of Samantha and the gentle smile of Elizabeth Montgomery live on, serving as a reminder that behind every radiant smile on screen is a heart that knows pain, but one that always chose to shine. Agnes Moorehead as Endora, a witch's shadow among the stars. Born on December 6, 1900 in Clinton, Massachusetts, Agnes Robertson Moorehead was a woman who possessed a classic aristocratic demeanor, intelligent, proud, and somewhat mysterious. When she accepted the role of Endora in Bewitched, Agnes was 64 years old. Endora, the powerful, sharp, and contradictory witch mother, became the soul of the series. With her stern gaze and a voice that was cold yet captivating, she simultaneously frightened and fascinated the audience. Endora was not merely an antagonist, she was an allegory for a generation of strong women refusing to be bound by convention. Off-screen, Agnes Moorehead was a private woman who led a lonely life. She was married but unhappy, had no children, and devoted most of her time to her work. Despite her success with Citizen Kane and Bewitched, Hollywood constantly confined her to the image of the Steel Woman, a powerful but emotionally distant role. In her final years, her health rapidly declined. On April 30, 1974, Agnes passed away in Rochester, Minnesota, at the age of 73. There are rumors that the lung cancer that claimed her life originated from the filming of The Conqueror, a project contaminated by the radiation of the Nevada desert, where many actors later contracted similar illnesses. Although never proven, this imbues her death with a sense of destiny, much like her character Endora, mystical and inexplicable. Upon her death, Agnes Moorehead left an estate estimated at around $10 million, a large portion of which was dedicated to her church and charitable foundations. David White as Larry Tate, a smile amidst unfinished deals. David White was born on April 4, 1916, in Denver, Colorado. When Bewitched aired in 1964, he was 48 years old, playing the role of Larry Tate, the astute boss who always had a smile and was ready to change his mind just to please a client. With his sharp acting, White turned Larry into a satirical emblem of the advertising world, humorous, pragmatic, yet very human. Behind that composed face was a life steeped in loss. David White lost his wife in a plane crash in 1966, right when Bewitched was enjoying phenomenal success. If that were not enough, he later had to endure the ultimate pain when his only son, Jonathan White, was killed in a terrorist bombing in 1988. That tragedy seemed to extinguish the last light in the heart of the once resilient father. The grief quietly led David to withdraw from Hollywood, no longer desiring fame. David White passed away on November 27, 1990 in Los Angeles at the age of 74. He was buried at Hollywood Forever Cemetery, the resting place of many cinematic legends. His net worth upon his death was estimated at around $3 million, a modest figure compared to his long career. But for the audience, his true value lay in Larry Tate's smile, a friendly, slightly awkward smile that everyone has seen somewhere in their own lives. Dick York as Darrin Stevens, the man without magic. Dick York was born on September 4, 1928 in Fort Wayne, Indiana, a young man who came to acting through pure passion and sheer determination. Not hailing from an artistic lineage, York started his career on small stages distinguished by his resonant voice and eyes that always shone with sincerity. When Bewitched premiered in 1964, Dick York was only 36 years old. In the role of Darrin Stevens, Samantha's mortal husband, he became the symbol of the middle-class American man of the time, hard-working, loving his wife, and perpetually helpless against the magic outside his control. But just as his fame peaked, tragedy began. During a previous action film shoot, York suffered a severe back injury, a wound that caused him constant pain for the rest of his life. Despite his best efforts, filming became too much. There were days when he would faint right on the set, being led out of the studio to the sympathetic applause of his colleagues. Finally, in 1969, he was forced to leave Bewitched after the 170th episode, handing the role of Darrin over to Dick Sargent. After leaving the show, Dick York's life descended into poverty. He lived with his wife in a small house in Michigan, relying on benefits and charity. Nevertheless, York never lost his kindness. In his final years, despite his deteriorating health, he still founded an organization to help the homeless and remarked, "I still have my voice, so I can still help someone." He passed away on February 20, 1992 at the age of 63 after many years of simple living and philanthropic work for the homeless. His net worth was only about $1,000, but he left behind something more precious than any money: the image of an artist smiling amidst his pain, and a Darrin Stevens the world has never forgotten. Dick Sargent as Darrin Stevens, Courage Between Two Worlds. Dick Sargent, born Richard Stanford Cox, came into the world on April 19, 1930 in Carmel-by-the-Sea, California, a land of artists and freedom. When he joined Bewitched in 1969, Sargent was 39 years old, the prime of his career, and also a most sensitive time in his personal life. He faced a huge challenge, replacing a face the audience had loved for 5 seasons. However, instead of trying to imitate his predecessor, Sargent brought a different Darrin, gentler, funnier, and more emotional. But off-screen, Dick Sargent had to live in a world still rife with prejudice. As a gay man, he was forced to hide his true self for most of his career. In the 1960s and 1970s, Hollywood remained unforgiving to those who were different. Despite this, he maintained a polite, humble demeanor and was cherished by his co-star Elizabeth Montgomery as a close friend. After Bewitched ended, Sargent continued to make sporadic appearances on television shows, but the glamour gradually faded. In 1991, when illness came calling, Dick Sargent publicly came out to the media. He spoke a simple but powerful sentence: "I got tired of playing somebody else besides myself." That statement made him one of the first male actors in Hollywood to dare to live authentically, a brave and deeply human act. Dick Sargent passed away on July 8, 1994 in Los Angeles after a long battle with prostate cancer at the age of 64. He was interred at a cremation cemetery in California. His net worth at the time of his death was estimated at around $1.5 million, a small figure compared to the courage he left to the world. George Tobias as Abner Kravitz, the neighbor of laughter. George Tobias was born on July 14, 1901 in New York, the city of art theater and aspiring dreams. When Hollywood opened its doors in the 1930s and 1940s, he entered the film world, participating in dozens of films, both large and small, from comedy to drama, always leaving the mark of a complete artist rather than someone chasing fame. By 1964, when Bewitched premiered, George Tobias was 63 years old. In the eyes of the audience, Abner was the quintessential middle-class American husband, kind, patient, sometimes gruff, but full of tolerance. Off-screen, George Tobias was a calm, humorous, and extremely modest man. He did not live for the spotlight, but for the joy of his craft. This simplicity made him beloved by the entire crew, who regarded him as the friendly uncle on the set. However, Tobias's real life was not as peaceful as his characters. As the son of Jewish immigrants, he had to rise on his own from the small stages in the Bronx to the Hollywood studios. Despite appearing in dozens of major films, Tobias was never categorized as a star. He lived a simple life, did not marry, dedicating most of his life to his work, and the cats he kept in his small apartment in Los Angeles. George Tobias passed away on February 27, 1980, at the age of 78. His net worth was estimated at $2 million. Humble, but he left behind something more valuable: the image of an ordinary man who made the laughter of Bewitched feel more real than ever. In the magical world of Bewitched, he did not need a wand. All he needed was a look, a dry yet warm line to create the simplest kind of magic, making people feel how lovely life still is. Alice Pearce as Gladys Kravitz. The Scream Between Two Worlds. Alice Pearce was born on October 16, 1917 in New York, the city of lights and costly dreams. When Bewitched premiered in 1964, she was 47 years old, playing the role of Gladys Kravitz, the curious neighbor who often panicked when she saw magical things that no one else believed. With her shrill voice and witty expressions, Pearce made audiences laugh, yet hidden behind that laughter was a soul that had endured much pain. At the age of 9, a merry-go-round accident left a lifelong scar on her chin. Instead of hiding it, Alice chose to turn it into her signature trait, venturing into comedy, where pain became the fuel for laughter. But fate was harsh, just as Bewitched was succeeding. She was diagnosed with terminal ovarian cancer. She kept her illness a secret, tirelessly continued to work, radiating a bright smile on set, treating the audience's laughter as the final medicine for herself. Despite her health steadily declining, she remained resolute in her role, a testament to her admirable professional spirit. She passed away on March 3, 1966, at the age of 48, just 2 months after receiving a posthumous Emmy for the role. Her net worth was estimated at $1 million, but her true legacy is her laughter imbued with courage, that of a woman who used humor to light up her short days. Marion Lorne as Aunt Clara. The magic of clumsiness. Marion Lorne was born on August 12, 1883, in West Pittston, Pennsylvania. When she accepted the role of Aunt Clara in Bewitched in 1964, she was 81 years old, an age when many had retired, but for Marion, the spotlight remained her only joy. In the series, Aunt Clara was the kind-hearted but absent-minded witch aunt whose spells often ended in disaster. Yet it was this very clumsiness that made the audience adore her, an icon of kindness, of the innocence remaining in a calculating world. Despite her advanced age, Marion came to the film set every day with an admirably youthful spirit. The entire crew loved her like a true grandmother, always bringing cookies, telling old stories, and smiling gently between takes. When Bewitched aired, audiences quickly came to see Aunt Clara as a symbol of unconditional love, a simple magic in a world full of spells. Few knew that in real life, Marion was very lonely. Childless and avoiding the clamor of fame, she dedicated her entire life to art, stepping from the London stage to Hollywood with the sole belief that audiences will remember me for my smile, not my name. After Bewitched premiered, audiences truly did remember her, and that affection stayed with her until the end of her life. Marion Lorne passed away on May 9, 1968, at the age of 84, just before she was posthumously awarded the Emmy Award for Outstanding Supporting Actress for the role of Aunt Clara, a late but complete honor. She was interred at Ferncliff Cemetery, New York, the resting place of many legendary artists. Her net worth upon her death was estimated at around $1 million. Though not large, the spiritual value she left behind is priceless. In Bewitched, Aunt Clara did not need perfect magic with just her kind heart. She made the whole world smile. Mabel Albertson as Phyllis Stevens, the mother-in-law who was always right. Born on July 24, 1901 in Massachusetts, Mabel Albertson entered acting as the destiny of a soul born to embody characters. When she took on the role of Phyllis Stevens in Bewitched in 1964, she was 63 years old, an age of experience enough to understand all the anxieties of a mother who feared losing her son to the strange world of witches. With her frowning but deeply loving eyes, Mabel turned Phyllis into a classic archetype, the mother-in-law who was both hateful, pitiable, and very real. Off-screen, her life lacked that laughter. The chronic stress and pressure of the acting world caused Mabel's health to decline rapidly. She struggled with insomnia, nervous exhaustion, and gradually withdrew from film projects. In her final years, she lived quietly far from the stage that had nourished her, with only the memory of the time before the cameras stopped rolling. Mabel Albertson passed away on September 28, 1982, at the age of 81. Her net worth was estimated at $1.5 million, a small figure compared to the legacy she left, the image of a loud mother who contained a whole human heart. Bernard Fox as Dr. Bombay, the wacky witch doctor, and his odd smile. Bernard Fox was born on May 11, 1927 in Port Talbot, Wales, a region that gave birth to many talents of British cinema. When Bewitched aired in 1964, he was 37 years old, playing the role of Dr. Bombay, the witch doctor, with his sudden appearances and lines that made everyone laugh. Fox did not need magic just with his eyes and charming English accent. He turned the character into a unique icon of the series. Few knew that behind those smiles was the long-standing worry of an artist who always stood on the periphery of fame. Hollywood loved his talent, but only in supporting roles. Fox once said, "I don't need to be famous, I just need to act." In his twilight years, he lived a peaceful life in California, rarely appearing in public with only his old laughter echoing from the small screen. Bernard Fox passed away on December 14, 2016 at the age of 89. His net worth was around $4 million, a modest figure, yet symbolic of a lifetime of contribution from an artist who made audiences smile, even though he lived in silence himself. Dick Wilson as Drunk, Mr. Potter, the lovable drunk amidst magic. Dick Wilson was born on July 30, 1916 in Preston, Lancashire, England, into an artistic family. When he was young, he moved with his parents to Canada and later came to the U.S. to pursue an acting career. Before finding his way to film, Dick was a fighter pilot in World War II, a little-known past of the man who would later make all of America laugh with his charming drunken performances. When he joined Bewitched in 1964, he was 48 years old, experienced enough to turn the supporting role of the drunk, or sometimes Mr. Potter, into an unforgettable highlight. Every time Samantha or Endora accidentally used magic in the street, audiences would see the drunk appear eyes wide, shaking his head and taking another drink as if to confirm, "I must be too drunk." Without long dialogue or dramatic flair, but with just a few seconds of screen time, Dick Wilson made the whole set burst into laughter. Beyond Bewitched. He was also a famous advertising face recognized by millions of American viewers for the legendary line in the toilet paper commercial, "Please don't squeeze the charmin'." With his distinctive voice and rustic humor, he turned what seemed like a minor character into an icon. Off-screen, Dick was a friendly, optimistic, and simple man. He once said, "If I make someone smile on their worst day, then my little role has meaning." After hundreds of supporting roles over a career spanning more than 50 years, Dick Wilson passed away on November 19, 2007 in California at the age of 91. His net worth was estimated at around $5 million, largely from advertising and television contracts, proof that laughter, even from a supporting role, holds immense value. To the audience, Dick Wilson will forever be the lovable drunk, the man who turned small moments on screen into simple joy, encapsulating the humor and kindness of Bewitched. Maurice Evans as Maurice, the lonely gentleman warlock between two worlds. Maurice Evans was born on June 3, 1901 in Dorchester, England. He grew up in an artistic environment and soon developed a passion for Shakespearean theater. Before coming to Hollywood, Evans was a major figure in England and on Broadway, known for his dignified acting, precise enunciation, and aristocratic style, all of which later became his unmistakable signature. When Bewitched premiered, Evans was 63 years old, and the role of Maurice, Samantha's warlock father, seemed to be written specifically for him. The character was arrogant, aesthetic, and always viewed himself as the star of the magical world. But deep down, he was a father who loved his daughter wholeheartedly. Every appearance by Maurice brought with it the sophistication and drama of a miniature stage play, smoke magic, and Shakespearean-tinged dialogue. Evans turned a supporting role into an icon, both hilarious and deeply emotional, loved by the audience, despite only appearing in 12 episodes. Off-screen Maurice Evans was a private man dedicated more to his art than to fame. He never married, lived alone for most of his life, dedicating his time to writing scripts, teaching acting, and bringing Shakespeare to television audiences. Those close to him recounted that despite always appearing composed, Evans carried a profound loneliness, the gentle but very real tragedy of an artist who devoted his life to his roles and not to himself. He passed away on March 12, 1989 in California at the age of 87. His net worth at the time of his death was estimated at around $2 million, modest but worthy of a career spanning over half a century dedicated to classical art. Paul Lynde as Uncle Arthur Laughter in the Shadows. Paul Lynde was born on June 13, 1926, in Ohio, United States. When he joined Bewitched in 1965, he was 39 years old at the peak of his career and one of Hollywood's most intelligent comedians. In the role of Uncle Arthur, the witty and mischievous warlock Uncle Lynde delivered colorful laughter with his sophisticated satirical style, making every one of his appearances a solo act within the episode. But behind that humorous mask was a solitary life. Lynde lived in an era when gay artists had to conceal their true selves to survive. He lost his close friend in a mysterious accident in 1965, a shock that plunged him into alcohol and self-reproach. Despite his brilliant success on stage, he was lost in real life, constantly seeking an acceptance that was never fully attained. Paul Lynde passed away on January 10, 1982, at the age of 55, due to a heart attack in his sleep. His net worth was around $8 million, enough to prove his talent, but not enough to fill the loneliness of a man who made the whole world laugh except himself. J. Edward McKinley as Mr. Benson, the silent artist. J. Edward McKinley was born on October 11, 1917 in Seattle, Washington. When he joined Bewitched in 1964, he was 47 years old, in the prime of his career, but still struggling to be included in the list of supporting actors. In the role of Mr. Benson, the stiff but charming office worker, McKinley brought a natural comedic touch, a typical middle-class American figure amidst a strange world of magic. Although he appeared in only 10 episodes, he made audiences remember his restrained acting and tired eyes, perhaps a reflection of his own real life. Off-screen, McKinley was reclusive, having dealt with depression and the fear of being forgotten in a rapidly changing Hollywood. He suffered from heart disease for many years, but still persistently went to acting jobs, believing that, as long as I am working, I am still alive. McKinley passed away on July 30, 1992, at the age of 74. His net worth was estimated at around $300,000, modest but worthy of a man who dedicated his life to art without needing the spotlight. Parley Baer as Desk Sergeant, the stabilizer in a chaotic world. Parley Baer was born on August 5, 1914 in Salt Lake City, Utah. When he joined Bewitched in 1964, he was 50 years old, already a familiar face in American radio and television. In the role of the Desk Sergeant, the calm police officer amidst chaotic magical situations, Baer brought a balancing touch of everyday life to the series' sanity in a world full of absurdity. But behind that stable image was an artist who lived entirely for his craft to the point of neglecting himself. Baer worked almost his entire life, rarely resting, and faced prolonged loneliness after his wife passed away. He once shared that he only felt alive when inhabiting someone else. In his final years after a serious car accident, he had to use a wheelchair but continued to do voiceover work for the radio, a passion that never faded. Parley Baer passed away on November 22, 2002 at the age of 88. His net worth was estimated at around $1 million, simple but reflective of a quiet and resilient artistic life, a man who always maintained kindness in a noisy world. Paul Barselou as Bartender, the last witness of the magic era. Paul Barselou was born on May 31, 1922, in Quebec, Canada. When Bewitched aired in 1964, he was 42 years old, playing the role of the bartender, the cheerful barman who often witnessed unbelievable things in the bar. Although he only appeared in 9 episodes, Barselou still made an impression with his friendly demeanor and calm smile, setting the stage for the magical antics of Samantha and the other witches. Off-screen, Barselou had a turbulent life. He left his homeland for the U.S. to pursue acting, but was mostly cast in supporting roles, struggling to make a living in the unforgiving film capital. When old age arrived, he chose to retire from the stage, living a secluded and simple life with his small family in California. Friends recalled that he always referred to Bewitched as the warmest time of his career. Paul Barselou passed away on November 22, 2017 at the age of 95. The last surviving member of the main Bewitched cast to live into the 21st century. His net worth was estimated at around $500,000, but his true value lies in his resilience and kindness, proof that sometimes the smallest role holds the longest memories. Jack Collins as Mr. Robbins, the fading light of the veteran artist. Jack Collins was born on March 22, 1918 in Brooklyn, New York. When he joined Bewitched in 1964, he was 46 years old, playing the roles of Mr. Robbins Sargent, supporting characters who appeared in 8 episodes representing the busy corporate world around Darrin Stevens. Although not a prominent role, Collins exuded gravity and charm, contributing to the series' distinctive, witty humor. Behind that composed image, Jack Collins carried the deep regret of an artist who had once stood on the Broadway stage and was gradually overshadowed by television. He once confided that, in Hollywood, they remember the character's name, not the actor's. Throughout his final years, he tirelessly accepted small roles, not for fame, but simply to continue living in the world of art. Jack Collins passed away on January 31, 2001 at the age of 82. His net worth was estimated at around $1 million, not large, but symbolic of a lifetime of loyalty to the stage where he once shone before the spotlights slowly dimmed. Charles Lane as Jessie Mortimer, the man who never left the stage. Charles Lane was born on January 26, 1905 in San Francisco, California. When Bewitched premiered in 1964, he was 59 years old, playing the role of Jessie Mortimer in 8 episodes. With his stern face, sharp voice, and serious demeanor, Lane often played demanding bosses or rigid officials archetypes that audiences found both intimidating and amusing. Over his career spanning more than 70 years, he appeared in over 250 films, yet he was rarely known by his real name. That was the silent tragedy of a character actor, someone who was never a star, although no film was complete without him. Despite his advanced age, Lane never officially retired. He was still giving interviews and making television appearances at the age of 100, his voice still clear, his memory sharp. But behind that was years of loneliness. Friends, co-stars, even contemporary audiences had all passed away. Charles Lane passed away on July 9, 2007 at the age of 102, one of Hollywood's longest living actors. His net worth was estimated at $2 million, small compared to the immense legacy he left, the image of an artist who never stopped living for his roles. The stars of Bewitched brought endless joy to millions of viewers, but the true story behind them deeply engraves a life lesson: fame cannot eclipse human loneliness. Despite their many tragedies, they live on through every smile and every bit of magic they left behind. Which Bewitched character impressed you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments section, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe to continue exploring the emotional behind-the-scenes stories of Hollywood.